The town of Hollowbrook had always been quiet, too quiet. Nestled between dense woods and forgotten highways, its only claim to fame was the abandoned Crimson Carnival on the outskirts. The carnival had shut down decades ago after a fire killed its star performer, a clown named Mr. Grin. But locals whispered that Mr. Grin never left. They said his laughter still echoed through the rusted Ferris wheel on foggy nights. No one believed the rumors, until the first disappearance. Lila, a high school senior, scoffed as her friends gathered around a bonfire near the carnival's crumbling gates. "You're all scared of a ghost story?" she teased, her breath visible in the October chill. Her boyfriend, Jake, nudged her. "You won't be laughing when Mr. Grin drags you into his funhouse." The group laughed, but the sound died when a distant tinkling cut through the silence, like a music box playing off-key. Then came the laughter. High-pitched, giddy, and wrong. "Stop messing around," Lila snapped, but her friends froze. Behind them, between the skeletal trees, stood a figure. Its face was bone-white, with a crimson smile stretching ear to ear. Ruffled blood-stained clothes hung from its lanky frame. One hand clutched a balloon animal, a twisted, knotted thing that pulsed like a heartbeat. "Run!" someone screamed. They scattered, but the clown moved unnaturally fast, its joints cracking like dry twigs. Lila tripped, her ankle twisting. She turned, expecting Jake to help, but he was gone. The clown loomed over her, its breath reeking of rot. The last thing she saw was its jagged teeth as it giggled, "Let's play." By dawn, Lila and Jake were missing. The only clue, a deflated balloon shaped like a spider, left on Lila's doorstep. Detective Mara Cole hated clowns. Always had. Now, as she stared at the Polaroid found in Jake's locker, her phobia clawed at her throat. The photo showed Jake and Lila, their faces stretched into grotesque smiles, carved into their cheeks. Behind them, barely visible in the shadows, was the clown. Mara visited the carnival at dusk. The gates creaked open, as if inviting her. Inside, tents sagged like rotten flesh. A faded sign read, "Mr. Grin's Funhouse, where smiles last forever." She stepped inside, her flashlight trembling. The walls were lined with mirrors, but her reflection wasn't hers. A dozen versions of the clown stared back, each closer than the last. A music box's lullaby seeped from the walls. "Come join the show," a voice crooned. She stumbled into a room littered with mannequins, all wearing the faces of missing teens. Their hollow eyes followed her. A giggle echoed. Mara spun, firing her gun. The bullet shattered a mirror, and for a split second, she saw him, Mr. Grin, his mouth sewn shut with rusty wire. "You're not smiling," he hissed, his voice like nails on glass. Mara fled, but not before spotting a name etched into the floor, Elias Voss. Back at the station, she dug through archives. Elias Voss was the carnival's owner. His journal revealed madness. "The crowd stopped laughing, so I made them laugh. Cut their frowns upside down." But Grin was jealous. He wanted their smiles for himself. That night, Mara's phone rang. A child's voice whispered, "He likes your face." She turned. A balloon floated outside her window. Inside it, a human eye bobbed. The storm raged as Mia, Lila's younger sister, sneaked into the carnival. She'd found a flyer in Lila's room. "Tonight, Mr. Grin's Grand Revival." Scribbled on the back, "He's using them. Stop him." The funhouse doors slammed shut behind her. The air reeked of copper. Mannequins lined the halls, their faces familiar, Lila, Jake, others from town. Mia stifled a scream as Lila's mannequin twitched, its glass eyes pleading. In the center ring, beneath a broken spotlight, stood Mr. Grin. His stitches had burst, his mouth a gaping maw of needles and teeth. Around him, the missing teens hung like marionettes, their carved smiles dripping. "You're just in time," he rasped. The music box crescendoed. Mia grabbed a rusty pole and swung. The clown screeched, his head lolling sideways. The puppets collapsed. Mia freed Lila, whose voice was a raw whisper, "He's not human, he's the carnival." As they fled, the tents collapsed, the ground swallowing the ruins. But Mia heard his laugh in the wind, and in her nightmares, she still sees balloons at her window. Mia and Lila stood at the edge of the woods, staring at the freshly bulldozed earth where the Crimson Carnival once stood. The town had celebrated its destruction, but the sisters knew better. The air still tasted metallic. The wind carried faint giggles. And every night, Mia's dreams dragged her back to the funhouse, to Mr. Grin's hollow voice hissing, "You can't bury me." Detective Mara Cole had vanished the night the carnival collapsed. Her car was found abandoned, the interior strewn with deflated balloons and a single Polaroid, a blurry image of Mara, her mouth stitched shut with crimson thread. The town blamed trauma. Mia knew the truth. A week after the carnival's demolition, Hollowbrook began to rot. First, the crops wilted. Then, the river turned thick and black, bubbling with the stench of decay. Pets went missing. Children woke screaming about the smiley man outside their windows. Lila's scars, the jagged cuts Mr. Grin had carved into her cheeks, itched relentlessly. She scratched until they bled, whispering, "He's still here. Beneath us." Mia found the old journal Detective Mara had hidden in her attic. Elias Voss's final entry was scrawled in dried blood. "The carnival is alive. It feeds on laughter, grows in the dark. Grin is its heart. Cut him out, but beware, the roots run deep." They returned at midnight, shovels in hand. Lila's phone light trembled over the muddy pit where the funhouse once stood. "This is suicide," she breathed. "It's the only way to end this," Mia said, digging. The ground gave way suddenly, swallowing them into a cavern stinking of rot and candy-sweet decay. They landed in a tunnel lined with bones, some ancient, some fresh. Ribcages hung like chandeliers. At the center stood a massive, pulsing heart suspended by veins that snaked into the earth. It wasn't human. It was his. Mr. Grin's face stretched across the organ, his stitched mouth peeling into a grin as they approached. "You came back to play," the heart gurgled, its voice a wet chorus of the missing. Lila lunged with a shovel, but the veins lashed out, binding her wrists. Mia scrambled back as the heart's surface split, revealing a writhing mass of clown mannequins fused together, their limbs, their smiles, all his. "You can't kill joy," Mr. Grin crooned. The mannequins scuttled toward Mia, their porcelain fingers snapping like pincers. Then, a gunshot rang out. Detective Mara emerged from the shadows, half her face melted like wax, her mouth sewn shut. She'd used a rusted needle to pry the threads loose, leaving her lips mangled. "He's weak, here," she rasped, firing at the heart. The organ shrieked, spewing black bile. Mara threw Mia a rusted fire axe. "Cut it out." Mia swung, the blade sinking into the heart. The world shook. The mannequins exploded into porcelain shards as the heart's face contorted, Mr. Grin's stitches bursting, his laughter turning to screams. "No! No! The show must." The axe struck again. The heart ruptured, unleashing a tidal wave of shadows. The cavern collapsed. Mia dragged Lila and Mara into a fissure as the tunnels crumbled. Above ground, the sisters watched the earth swallow the carnage whole. Detective Mara didn't follow. 1 year later, Hollowbrook healed. The river cleared. The laughter stopped. Mia and Lila never spoke of that night. They didn't mention the stitches that reappeared on their pillows, or the fleeting glimpses of a lanky figure in the woods. They pretended not to hear the music box lullaby humming through their vents on sleepless nights. But on Halloween, as Mia handed candy to a group of children, she froze. Among them stood a small boy in a faded clown costume, his smile too wide, his eyes black pits. He held a balloon animal, a twisted, knotted spider. "Thanks," he giggled, his voice layered with another's. When Mia blinked, he was gone. Only a single red balloon remained, tied to her mailbox. She popped it with a kitchen knife. Inside was a Polaroid of Detective Mara, her face finally at peace, and beside her, a shadow with a familiar jagged smile.